are going to dive into the nitty-gritty of UXing your case study today. And basically, just diving straight into it, we are UX designers. So why not UX our case study just like anything else? So that's kind of the premise of this whole workshop. I'll give you all a bit of an introduction into me. So my name is Amy. As CJ said, I'm a UX designer by day at Online Metals. I'm the mentor team lead here at IterateUX. I also do a lot of mentorship on the side. So I'm a mentor through the University of Washington iSchool in their iMentorship program. So I'm partnered with just one mentee through this program. There's a whole fleet of mentors, and pairing happens in the fall. And we work with that student all year to help them get a job and get their foot into the industry. And then I also mentor on the Design Buddies, the Mentoring Club, and TopMate.io platforms. And then also like to do a lot of workshop presentations in collaboration with different community initiatives like hackathons and designathons. A little bit about me before UX. I'm a career transitioner. So I had long careers in the performing arts and coffee industries. I was a competitive latte artist, a coffee and barista trainer and cafe manager. So I trained baristas at Mac cafes and then also taught at Seattle Barista Academy. And was a professional performing artist for music and dance as well, and taught that. So similar to that career trajectory with design, I'm enjoying being able to now teach and help other people along their journeys. Within UX, I've primarily worked within e-commerce, SaaS, health tech, and the service industries. And I did start as a freelancer and then moved into full-time positions over time. And worked for a variety of different companies, from startups to agencies, nonprofits, as well as corporations. And it's really amazing how different all these different companies are and how to pitch your portfolio in a way to these different companies, because that hiring process will be so different depending on who is doing these interviews, who is looking at the resumes and the portfolios. Sometimes that's a designer, the CEO of the startup or agency. Sometimes that's going to be a recruiter who doesn't know anything about design. So it's been really cool for me to have had all this like diverse types of companies to work with. The last star for my glove, I guess, would be a FANG company. Maybe someday we can dream, right? So I do not work at a FANG company. My day job, I work in e-commerce at Online Metals. It's we sell metal online as well as plastics and fittings, framing systems, stuff like that. And this company actually began as a startup here in Seattle over 20 years ago. We were acquired by ThyssenKrupp, which is a German-based big international tech and industrial conglomerate back in 2007. And at this company, I mostly lead the end-to-end UX design for both our responsive website and progressive web app. And I also manage and scale the design system here. And then additionally on the side, little bits for our third-party marketplaces. So that will be like design work, visual design, information architecture, flows and sitemaps, things like that. And at IterateUX, I serve as the mentor team lead. I do portfolio and resume reviews, and then focus on managing and growing our internal mentor team and program. So if you don't know about this already, you can submit a ticket, you can get a portfolio review done. Many of you are participating in this UX challenge where you're already partnered with a wonderful mentor helping you and your team along the journey. So that's part of the program that I'm growing, is to help our organization bring on fantastic mentors that can support all of you in your journeys. And without further ado, we will actually hop over to our whiteboarding activity just to get a basic baseline here. the big open question is, what are your biggest case study related pain points, blockers, or areas of confusion? And what we're going to do is head over to the Fig Jam board that we'll drop a link in the chat here. And feel free to grab as many sticky notes as you want and just kind of start expressing your ideas, venting your frustrations, and we'll review this and then dive into unpacking all that and hopefully giving you some actionable solutions to turn those pains into gains. I'm going to stop my share really quick because this takes my whole screen, and I'll navigate over to the document so that I can screen share that.
Just a reminder, the Fig Jam link is now in the chat, so please make sure to participate with us today and click on that
Thank you.
link there. Nice.
Thanks, PJ.
All good.
All right. So if y'all can see my screen, I'm going to go ahead and start a little timer here. We'll do 5 minutes. And I'll play a little bit of music in the background so we don't go crazy with the silence.
Please make sure to join the links so you get to hear the music. Otherwise, you will be only seeing the board. Okay.
Thank you. And we might need to drop the link again in the chat for any people that are just joining. But what you can do is just start dropping down your ideas. And if you want to start clustering, feel free to start grouping your ideas under topics. You can copy the topic if you start seeing some patterns emerge, and kind of drag your sticky notes under each area.
There is room left in the backpack. It is.
I love watching all the little cursors all over the Fig Jam board. It looks like happy little bees. And did you guys see the cool custom cursor feature? If you look at my screen sharing, it's up here in the upper right, and you can actually choose a custom cursor. Like I have this little pink spinning disc, but you can have like bunnies, hearts, pencils, all these cute things. So feel free to customize your cursor and have fun if you want to play around with the new feature.
That is an important hack to learn. Thank you.
Right? It's brand new, so everyone's having fun with it today. It's a today
So
release. Yes.
While everyone is going with their pain points, I just wanted to share, Amy, I didn't know you were a latte artist. Oh my God, I need some help there. Like I made my latte art terribly every day, but I still have to finish it regardless. But I never stopped quitting practicing. So that was
That's
a cute
awesome.
one.
I love it. Yeah, I would be happy to share any tips and tricks. Whether, yeah, I do free flow latte art, so like the free pour style, as well as etching, which will be like drawing with the foam. So yeah, whatever style you're looking to learn, we can totally do like a video call or something.
Yes, you'll be seeing me doing that bad pour every time. I think it's I don't know, I feel like it's just not form enough or something, I guess.
It's multiple things. Mostly it's milk texture. Like you want it to look like wet paint. I know this is not like totally design
Oh,
related, but while everyone's dropping their
oh wait.
stickies, yeah,
Yeah.
you want the bubbles like microfoam, like wet paint. And then beyond
Um,
that, it's like vectors and flow, like when your stream will be narrow and when you'll like double the rate and volume of it.
mhm.
Um,
We'll
but yeah,
definitely
it's not as
need to
simple
take.
as it seems.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Should I use my
Cool. We have like less than a minute left, and I see people are still writing stuff, but
Mhm,
just in light of time, I'm going to start zooming in.
mhm.
So I hope no one feels too invaded here. But I'm going to start zooming in into some of these pain points that look kind of finished with nobody active on them. So I see a catch 22. You have to have an awesome complete case study before you can get a job. And it's hard to have that if you haven't had the right job. Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll talk about some, tactics for this. Um, that's our timer. So we'll wrap up quickly here. Um, and then also we have people wanting to see all the problems you solve, but if you didn't know ahead of time, you will not have recorded all the stuff that went wrong and the challenges you overcame when it comes to doing your case study. Yep, definitely. um, and I think sometimes like it's okay to not have that ideal case study. We'll talk about this a bit when we get in the slides, but you know, people like to see the mess and how you go about problem solving for that mess because sometimes the problems emerge when you're not looking for them even and a lot of times we're like so perfectionist and we want to show the like best case scenario case study of like look how I succeeded and made such an impact, but the real life is that this almost never happens that a project goes this kind of smoothly. And hiring managers are absolutely going to want to know how you approach difficult problems or things that don't go ideal. A good title for a case study, apparently not what you did or the name of the project, but what you learned. Um, yes, I'll give a little hint here. Metrics always are helpful to incorporate into like the description or part of the case study, but we can talk about that more in detail. Feeling like I didn't contribute enough to a project, but still need a case study for a portfolio. Yeah, that like especially if you did a collaborative project and you didn't do everything. I would say for this, like don't undermine the value of collaboration because that is how teams work unless you're going for roles that will be like you are the sole designer and you have to do everything yourself. Hiring managers will want to see they have a nice balance of doing a lot of work yourself, but also that you understand how to collaborate with teams, which means like you're not contributing everything to the project. You might only have a few deliverables, but you're still involved in the discussions and the strategy. Um, Hiring managers spending around 1 to 3 minutes skimming a case study. How much info should I put in? Absolutely. And we're going to cover a lot of this in our slides of like how to optimize for the text and capture that attention because that's so real. Like if you're not able to capture the interest and hold the interest, how how can you get the job? It takes so much time. Oh my gosh, I feel this. So it's so real. What if there are no metrics you can report? I feel like, if you cannot report, you can always report metrics to some point. I would say if you can't report any metrics, don't include that kind of case study. But usually it's just about getting creative. Sometimes it's not metrics, like say the product isn't live yet. So maybe you don't have real like ROI or abandoned carts or, be able to like prove the conversion. Maybe it's more of a like a theoretical. The way you present the case study you can still get creative with like the intent is for this, and here's how we'll go about measuring it, which showcases that you still understand how metrics work and have a plan in place to measure, but it's just not done yet. So you can have a lot of control over that narrative and how you want to spin the story, so that you're still showcasing that you understand the design process, that you're putting together a strong case study, even if, maybe there aren't the kind of metrics you would want to have on there. Unideal metrics are sometimes a reality for projects. And the taking so much time, unfortunately, there's just kind of no way around this, but it does get easier. Like, once you've found that platform you want to use and have settled into how you want to go about things, until you decide to change your platform and have to redo it all. So it is a living document, a work in progress, and you will find senior designers that are like, oh, guess what? Now I'm going to redo it in Webflow, just for fun. We create our own work for ourselves sometimes. Wanting to show as much information as possible, but also wanting to make sure of the key insights. And that one also, I'm kind of wanting to cluster them already. But yeah, being able to solve for this 1 to 3 minutes, having a lot of information, so much to say and so little time, right? And then showing metrics, I'll group that one over here. Personal projects, there might not be as many metrics. Exactly. Sometimes you have to get super creative with what kind of metrics you're going to show, or theoretical metrics. Not having real world case studies, so having to use my school case studies. Yes. Yeah, that is a very real pain point. And we'll discuss some strategies in the slides for other types of case studies to pursue. Research and highlight the most important aspects, and of the research to highlight the insights. And okay, to start with something that doesn't work, failure is okay. Yes, failure is definitely okay. Like not every project is going to be a home run. Sometimes sometimes you'll decide that, ultimately the project isn't something you want to put on your portfolio if it's something like that. But if it's the sort that showcases how you can problem solve and how you can pivot, and, that sort of failure along the way, and reflection, it shows how you understand how to learn and grow as a designer, which is great. And then what our hiring manager is looking for, what makes for a good case study. We'll cover some of this. User flows that are created in high fidelity. It's not a requirement for every case study unless you're doing one that's very heavy into like information architecture. So it will depend on the product or the project. But the user flows don't necessarily have to be. How much content, and I guess that, fits in again with these ones up here. Novels, and yeah, I will touch on just briefly that with UX research, for example, or a UX writer case study, you will see like a lot more detailed novels, as Alan says here. Are people going to read that stuff? Well, it depends. It depends how your writing style is, right? All of us read Medium articles where sometimes we're skimming and sometimes we're clinging to every word because it's so interesting and personable and you're gripped along every way, right? So it will depend on your writing style, on how you're making something relatable, or the shock factor, right? Is this just surprising and people are intrigued because they're like, whoa, how this person is really taking a different approach with how they're talking to us, or like bringing this up. I'm interested and fascinated. So you can have this approach, and especially it will be more common with like the UX research and UX writer case studies, less common with like UX and product design, where the visual component will also do some of that storytelling. And we have getting the ball rolling on the case study. Yeah, having a difficult time getting started. Here, I feel like it always helps just to even start a list, even if it's just existing, on your phone. Having like a to-do list, some notes, or if you're very organized, you can start Notion, have kind of a roadmap, something like this, something to incentivize you. I really recommend the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I read it late last year, and the way of like building habits, getting the ball rolling with this stuff. I really liked his approach, and it really resonated with a lot of the approach that I would do naturally, of like creating a like a positive association, like, oh, I'm going to go to a coffee shop and get myself a nice latte and a pastry while I am preparing my case study. So then I created this like positive association that I'm having a nice experience or getting a reward, or something like this can be like a really nice incentive for getting the ball rolling and helping to like start organizing, like, what will I work on today, and really breaking it into small chunks so you don't get overwhelmed, because they are time consuming. They're a lot of work. How much time to be spent on crafting the case study and getting bogged down in the weeds? Yeah. It is a living document, so I would say sometimes you're never done. Like, even when you finish it, you get inspired by some idea and decide to go back and change things. That's okay, and that's normal, and it's great to keep your case study up to date. But in terms of how much time, that's up to you, how much time you have. Like, do you have are you applying for jobs? Do you need something up now? Having something is better than nothing, and you can always improve in the future. I think, depending on also, are you working? Are you unemployed? How much time do you have to give to it? And how is your mental health? Because this can be, really weird, really difficult, where people, they feel the need to get so much done, and they're so stressed out. And this should not be like a highly stressful, negative experience for you, or contribute to poor mental health. So be kind to yourself. There are like a ton of others here, so I'm just gonna kind of skip over some, but like, what is case study? We'll definitely get to that. The structure, containing the tasks we had, in the phases, and then a ratio of images and text, topics to include, all of these, like how to set it up, right? So we're gonna definitely get into that. I'm
Amy,
gonna go ahead.
Amy, sorry to interrupt you, but like I think Frankly can type it, so she include her comments in there in the chat box, the big round
Thank
one.
you.
Yeah. Do you get to see it? When you click on the chat, you can also see it.
Okay, I'm trying to find which is the one. You mean, oh, not the Zoom chat. Gotcha.
Here.
I thought you meant the Zoom chat, so I was going there. Yeah, so group projects, having trouble telling a complete when you're only focusing on what you did. So yeah, there were already some others talking about this as well. You're not only expected to focus on what you did. You can talk about the whole project. You can highlight what you individually contributed, but saying like, we did this, also speaks to the collaboration, right? Like, we are a team. And collaboration is huge. Like, I think one of the common mistakes, designers think that it's all about Figma and pixel perfectness and design. But the reality is, when you get a job as a UX designer, it's literally communication and collaboration. And like, yes, you design, yes, that stuff matters, but the soft skills are really important, and hiring managers absolutely want to see that reflected in a case study. Choosing the format will highlight that for sure. And then, unsure if your portfolio should be niched. Again, that just depends on the roles you're going after. It can be niched, and that can really help you land a job. Like, for example, if you come from a background as like a pharmacy tech or a medical practitioner, and now you are transitioning into uh, health tech, you might have like a really inspiring story to tell. You know exactly what field you want to go in and the industry you want to go in. So great. Um, that can help you stand out compared to other designers, which is really key right now. However, in this market, there's also a huge market for generalists who can do everything. And certain products or companies, you know, like agencies that literally want you to be able to design for SaaS and e-commerce and GovTech. So it really depends on the roles that you're going after, what you want to do, and then being concise. Yeah, absolutely. How do we, in 1 to 3 minutes, tell all this interesting stuff? And then expecting a junior designer to design a portfolio as perfect as a portfolio. Yes. I mean, honestly, a lot of the junior portfolios that I see these days, sometimes they're better than the senior ones. And it's just because of how competitive the market is right now. Right now, things are so difficult that, you know, you do have senior designers applying for the same jobs that some juniors are applying for because unemployment's run out and they just need a job, even if it's a 3 month contract. So that is the reality that a lot of juniors are facing right now, is like they're up against very um, amazing designers. I would say the juniors these days are like so much more impressive portfolios compared to the juniors a few years ago before the market was bad. So you guys have it tough, but also like kudos, like your presentations and portfolios are often like mind-blowingly amazing, and um, keep at it, because like what an amazing designer companies are getting. Um, let's go ahead and I'm going to stop the share from here, and I want to make sure we have enough time to get through the slides. So I'm going to pull those up. Zoom keeps, every time I stop a share, it closes my entire browser. There's some kind of bug going on. So sorry about that. I have to reopen this. All right. I'm going to fast forward past this stuff and hop into our presentation. All right. So we talked about a lot of these pain points that we'll start addressing, and anything I don't address, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So you'll have a chance to make sure that your questions get answered. Here, selecting your slide presentation tool is kind of step one, right? So we have the preparing your case study for your portfolio, which is a little bit different from preparing your case study for this UX design challenge. Within this UX design challenge, you're going to be putting together like a slide presentation. You'll be video recording yourself talking through this presentation as a submission deliverable for this challenge, right? So some ways that you can do this, you can put together PowerPoint presentation, a keynote, Google Slides, Canva, which is what I'm using here, even a Figma prototype that you can put together. So totally your choice on what format. Like as a team, I would say collaborate and decide on like, are we all familiar with one way? Do we always use Google Slides? So should we just go with that in light of saving time? Or as a team, are you really intrigued to start learning to leverage Canva? And that's a goal. So you actually want to expand your tool set, right? So whatever approach, there's no right or wrong way. I mean, definitely you want to make sure you feel confident enough about the presentation. So get the practice time in. But these are all great options to choose for that tool to house your designs, whether you're making the designs there or creating the designs in Figma and then exporting and uploading there to the platform. And then with UXing your case study, I always think of like from that very first standpoint of who are your users. And a lot, like you guys have identified who the users are, right? The hiring managers and recruiters. I see a lot of these pain points and questions on the FigJam board. So typically, yes, they will be recruiters, hiring managers, the interview panel folks, or potential clients if you're a freelancer. Basically, that they will be anyone who is viewing your portfolio and case study who has the influence to hire you, whether that's for a full-time job or a project. Within the IterateUX challenge context, your users are going to be judges and mentors. So your mentors will be able to support you and give you feedback, especially if you're able to start your case study, get this put together ahead of time before it's due, and get a review with your mentor. Then you can even iterate on it. The mentor may help you notice, oh, like this isn't flowing, or here's some typos, or oh, did you consider this? So totally recommend that. And then on the judge side, they're going to be reviewing these recordings, these slides, these presentations, and determining, who are the winners, essentially. We're going to dive into storytelling. And I saw a little bit of this in the FigJam of, kind of how much text or visuals and this balance. But there is a whole art to storytelling, how you can grip that attention through visual and verbal audio storytelling, and keep people intrigued. So we'll dive right into story arc structure. This can be used in theater, film, like any kind of storytelling, including UX, and case studies. So basically we have our exposition and then our resolution and then everything that's in the middle. So here, I'm calling it the beginning, the process, and the conclusion. In the beginning, which is the exposition, you're going to have the backstory and setup. So this will be things like, the context, the introduction, the, summary into what this project is. You can have the conflict and struggle. What were the challenges and constraints, right? Then you have the rising action and the climax. This can be anything that is positive or negative. The climax can be something so exciting, or it can be something like literally so stressful that you had to problem solve for. And then you'll have your falling action where everything winds up. Maybe you're preparing things for handoff. And then you have the resolution, which is either the thing shipped, the thing is done, or...
How to make a case study.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm not sure if someone had a question. I heard someone talking. Okay, if
We can
not,
continue.
we'll continue. And then, so we'll get into the verbal storytelling. So this will be understanding and leveraging that story structure, and then things like your tone, your voice, language, and personality, how that comes through. And then the text hierarchy, which can be like the size, the weight of it, right? Your storytelling when you make something big and bold and stand out, even if it's just text. Your storytelling when you make something custom text and like flowery or something. And then your storytelling with also accessibility and legibility. This is speaking to your skills as a designer. It also, like, if you make something easy to read and easy to flow through, this is part of storytelling. White space, while that's also part of visual design, the absence of visuals also allows that space to process, especially with text. You don't want too much text crammed too close to images. Give it some breathing space. That way, mentally, people can process what they are seeing in an image, what they are reading in text, and then the text alignment, centered versus left aligned. People in English speaking countries read left to right. So left aligned text is easier to read than like center aligned. Also being aware of like how long the text is spanning across your page. It's exhausting for people to try to read teeny tiny text all the way across, but if you separate your according to like a thought or according to kind of a concept, it can be easier to process. And then avoiding too much text. People skim rather than read for the most part. And I know this is so nebulous, like, well, what is too much text, or what are good ways? just, I would say like, 3 to 4 lines can be something manageable, or if you're using bullet points to separate thoughts, that's very digestible. But if you're looking at having like 20 lines of text and it becomes an article, unless you're a very great verbal storyteller, this, might be challenging for people to even consider to read. And then going back to that text hierarchy, if you do have longer sections of text that are important to convey, you can always bold out like or underline something that is really important where you're aware that there's a lot of text, maybe they do or don't want to read it, but you can still call attention to like what you did or what was that important takeaway. And then we have our visual storytelling. These are just some examples of like illustration. Duolingo is great with illustration and animation. It's cute little waving, hopping bird and bouncy animations, gamification. That all captures attention right away. You're like, oh, it's fun, it's cute. Oh, look at what it's doing. Something that humanizes a situation. Here we have photography with someone doing some like affinity mapping, clustering, showcasing even your workspace in this way of like you working on something that adds the human aspect to it. Visuals of your prototyping, videos, videos that autoplay upon load. Any of this like motion and visuals can really help with capturing the attention and incentivizing people to look more into like, what is this? Or maybe even the visuals themselves showcase what it is. I, can see right away, oh, it's a prototype. Cool. I can see your settings. I understand you know how to prototype. Or maybe I'm seeing that prototype just playing in a loop. And so that is all super helpful. A couple methods that are helpful for storytelling are the STAR method, but then also the cardio method. The STAR method, you'll hear a ton. It is super adopted by many companies, career coaches, as a method to pursue when you are preparing like your interview questions, for example. But also for your case studies, and that's going to be the situation, the task, the action, and the result. I'm also a big fan of the cardio method, and that's because it's a little bit less vague and kind of clues you a little more into what the deliverables might be, which will be context, assumptions, research, discoveries, iterations, and outcome. Cardio. It is a little bit longer, maybe harder to remember, but I do feel like it's a helpful sort of structure to have there. And speaking of structure, getting into what is that case study structure. So I created a little bit of information architecture here to highlight. So up at the top, we have all the context. And that's going to be things like, the company, the role, the team, the time frame, etc., that we see there at the top. Then we're going to have your design process, whether that's highlighted as like an image, or maybe you're highlighting the different sections as like, here's the research section, here's the define section. Like right now in the UX challenge that you're doing, you're probably following the design thinking, which is usually how our challenges have been structured. And with the design thinking process, you've had a workshop for each different part of the phase that the design process phase that you're in, kind of helping to guide that. And then deliverables that fit inside there. And that just kind of showcases like what you did according to that. So different ways you can showcase that design process, whether it's a snapshot or just kind of baking it into the actual case study. And then you're going to have like your assumptions behind that first iteration, what you were testing, maybe some like problem statements, how might we use things like this? Then the research done to test those assumptions. So that first phase of observe, research, empathize, understand, right? And then the discoveries that came from that research, that's going to be, the analysis, the data synthesis of all of this. Then we have our ideation and design from this, the prototyping, right? The testing, running different ideas, and then the iterations that are produced as a result of this. And this is super important, and something I see a lot of hiring managers and recruiters complaining about on LinkedIn is that when they see a lot of junior portfolios, that they don't have iterations. They show that like, oh, this ideal process, I made something, I designed something, everything was so ideal and so perfect. And that's, not reality. Iterations are desired, like having something that challenged what you initially thought, or feedback, recommending changes that will better suit the user, showcasing that you're taking that research and iterating on it and doing something with it, whether that's something, maybe you don't have time for iteration within the context of this case study for submission, but afterward, you can always iterate and continue taking this project, test it with users, iterate on those, create more designs so that the case study that you put on your portfolio, whatever you can't get to for your submission for this project, you can still continue with the whole design process, even to, you could develop it if you want, partner with developers. Then you'll have the outcome of the changes, which is super important. Nobody wants to, from a hiring manager perspective, hire somebody who just designs things and doesn't know what kind of impact they have. And then you'll have your takeaways, reflections, and next steps, kind of wrapping this up. So here's a little snapshot of that process. And don't worry, I'll be sharing a bunch of resources, some links and stuff like that, as well as these slides. I believe the design system organizers will be able to share that into the channel or within your files for you guys. You'll have access to all of this. So we'll dive into the context. So what to include within the context, this is at that story arc structure, like that intro, right? The whole backstory. So what to include, this is going to be like your company or the product that you're working on, your role, and then your team. Was this a sole project versus collaborative? And that's one of, the really great things about this UX challenge here is that it's collaborative. So if you've previously done student projects or haven't had the opportunity to work on a team, this is super valuable to be able to do that. And also have the mentor kind of acting as a team lead in a way, providing that coaching where you can get that taste of what it would be like if you were working in a company. And then the project timeframe and scope, and this is super important. Having this context that this is a design challenge, you only had 6 weeks. How much time was devoted to research? You could really break it down, or just saying it's a 6-week challenge. That lets the hiring manager know how you perform under pressure, how you can perform and create something under a tight timeline. Also, it's helpful to have projects that are longer in duration, so you could extend this and work on it for a very long time, even develop it. Maybe it takes a year. And have a really impactful live product that your app went live on the Apple Store or something like this. And then you'll have your tasks, your deliverables, and your tools. You can always list those out to just kind of showcase what you're familiar with and what you've used. And it's helpful for hiring managers at a glance to see that. The brief, challenges and constraints, you can list that at the beginning if you like, and then the project type. So we have, like a redesign, a passion project, hackathon or designathon like this one is, or like an internship or volunteer work. And there's different impact, right, that these can have. So some are like lower impact, some are higher impact. Hackathons and designathons like this one can be super great because, honestly, if you win or you have some kind of you place or have some kind of mention, that's all, bragging rights in a way for your social media, for your resume, as well as for your case study, that, you can include that as kind of a metric in a way. It is a metric of how you did. And even if you don't win, that doesn't mean your project wasn't impactful, or couldn't be impactful with the iterations and changes that you make for it. I've actually gotten jobs based off of hackathon projects that I had done. Even when I was working at companies working on hackathon projects, just because I wanted something that wasn't under NDA, or something for a different industry than the company I worked on. So they can be super impactful for having something to be effective in getting you a job. Then we have our design process. So like we already covered, you're working with the design thinking framework, but there's also like double diamond, the define, discover, define, develop, deliver, human-centered design, or even your own process, which literally can be anything, you know, think, build, like you can come up with your own fun personality injected process. Then we have our assumptions.
Amy, to jump in here, I just want to be cautious in time. We are 7 minutes to the end. Just wanted to flag here. Okay.
Thank you. I will wrap this up quickly. And yeah, so we have our underlying assumptions, things like your problem statement, how might we use, and a hypothesis that can flow here. And then research methodologies and insights. So on the left-hand side, we have some different methodologies that you might have pursued for this project, including what those are. You don't have to like list them all, but you can show screenshots of certain things or snippets of what those findings of, you know, the survey that you did. And that can be through, you know, like either a list of key findings, an analysis, affinity mapping and clustering, etc. And then for your discoveries is basically, what did you learn through the research? What did you find? Were those assumptions challenged or validated? Maybe you had both. And then, you know, basically, how did this help you to define the right problems and identify the potential solutions to hone in on pursuing? Then for the ideation and design, now is where you get to have all that Figma fun, get visual. So here you're going to focus on things like information architecture, ideation, which can be that low to mid to high fidelity concepts and variations, iterations on those designs before testing. Basically, that will be like internal team design reviews. You'll iterate even before this goes out to the users. And then your wireframes and prototypes. For testing, basically, you know, what were those testing tests and goals? Putting together a testing plan or interview script. You can include snapshots of that, or even, you know, bullet points highlighting what was that approach? What was that outreach strategy? How did you go about getting users and what types of users? What did you learn through your usability and prototype testing? Were you surprised, challenged, validated? All those sorts of questions that you can ask yourself and you can include in the testing portion. And then iterations, which will be what you changed and why, always based on those research, those, you know, customer or user insights. And then it's really helpful to showcase the designs before and after, because as designers, we're intimately familiar with our project and we remember every detail, but a hiring manager won't remember at all what that first iteration looked like. So having them side by side and even having like arrows or notes or something calling out what was changed or how that iteration was improved, that can be really impactful in the storytelling. And then showcasing your mock-ups and your final design and prototype, whether that's a screenshot or a video. And then for the metrics, which is, you know, the outcome, what was the result? What was the outcome of the initiative? What impact did it have? And then how did you measure or plan to measure the outcome and success? So for a project like this, you know, the outcome or success of the project, you might list of like, ideally, how would you measure like, you know, conversion? Would you be doing like heat maps? Would you have a baseline survey that you would then conduct later? All these different ways that you might have different methods to put in place to track those metrics over time, because those metrics, they're not instant. Sometimes it's like, what's the 1 week measurement? What's the 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, 1 year? They'll be measured over time for sure. And then the takeaways, these are going to be echoing that sprint retrospective, which is part of the whole agile process. And that's something we do every 2 weeks and meet as a team and discuss like what went well, what didn't go well, what will we change. So here you'll reflect on those key learnings and takeaways, talk about the challenges and constraints that you faced. Here I said embrace the mess is reality, and it really is. It shows your humanness, and it shows how like you're a real life designer and understand how to function within those unideal situations. And then what are those next steps? Because we know everything's not ideal. We will have next steps. Is there anything you would do differently? Hiring managers love to see this part. And then my little personal pro tip is to be strategic. So before jumping into your design, like sketching out that case study in like notes or Google or even just in a notebook, something like this by hand, focusing on the content that you're wanting to include in the case study. And having this sort of outline can really help you ensure that your message will be super clear and, kind of reduce having important details being left out where you're like, oh no, now I have to fit this in somewhere. And with that said, I know we're like up on time here, but if people are happy to stay or have specific questions that they would like to ask, I would love to open up for Q&A now.